Have you ever heard a song that changed hip-hop forever, only to find out it wasn't entirely original? Some of the biggest rap records ever made launched careers, topped the Billboard Platinum plaques and Grammy Awards was a different story. One involving courtroom battles, angry musicians, and settlements so expensive they changed the music industry forever.
Can't touch this. Look at my eyes, man. You can't.
In some cases, artists lost millions. In others, they surrendered songwriting credits that still pay someone else decades later. And one superstar is reportedly still paying for a sample to this very day. This isn't a story about sampling itself. Hip-hop was built on sampling. Taking pieces of older records and transforming them into something new is one of the genre's greatest creative traditions.
Man, you can't touch this. Yo, sound the bell. School is in, sucker.
This is about the moments when artists skipped one critical step: getting permission. Because in music, one uncleared sample can cost more than the song ever earns. Today on Flash Rewind, we're counting down 12 of the most famous sampling controversies in hip-hop history. Some became cautionary tales. Others completely rewrote copyright law. And one changed the way every producer in the business works today. Let's rewind. Number 12. 3-6 Mafia versus the New Generation.
I bet you won't hit a motherfucker, hit a motherfucker.
Long before Memphis became one of hip-hop's hottest cities, 3-6 Mafia had already created a sound unlike anything else. Dark melodies, haunting piano loops, heavy bass, horror movie-inspired production.
Whatever, what I want you to do right now is just stop and let them.
DJ Paul and Juicy J weren't just making music. They were creating an atmosphere that would eventually influence artists around the world. For years, their gritty underground style remained a regional phenomenon. Then streaming changed everything. Suddenly, a younger generation of artists began embracing that same Memphis aesthetic. Deep bass, eerie samples, and distorted vocals became incredibly popular. But according to 3-6 Mafia, admiration eventually crossed the line. Their legal complaint claimed that dozens of songs released by the rap duo Suicide Boys borrowed directly from 3-6 Mafia's catalog without securing the proper licenses. The allegations weren't limited to one beat or one melody. The lawsuit argued that entire elements of their classic recordings had been reused repeatedly, with some song titles even resembling the originals. Before heading to court, DJ Paul says he tried to handle the situation privately. According to him, conversations took place, promises were made, and he expected a resolution. Instead, nothing happened. Suicide Boys maintained that they believed the necessary permissions had already been worked out through previous conversations involving Juicy J and production collaborations. 3-6 Mafia strongly disagreed. The disagreement eventually became a lawsuit seeking millions in damages. What makes this story especially fascinating is the irony. During the early days of Southern hip-hop, sample clearance wasn't nearly as strict as it is now. Underground mixtapes frequently borrowed sounds from wherever producers could find them.
Go and throw it up. It's the L-I-L-F-L-I.
Number 11. Kanye West and the Hungarian classic. Kanye West has always built his reputation on pushing creative boundaries. His production has sampled everything from soul records to electronic music, often introducing forgotten artists to entirely new audiences. But one sample from the album Yeezus created a controversy that stretched far beyond American music. On the powerful track, New Slaves, listeners hear an emotional vocal passage during the song's closing moments. It's haunting, beautiful, and unforgettable. What many fans didn't realize was that the melody originated from a Hungarian rock classic recorded back in 1969. The song, Gyungi Hayulani, translated as Pearls in Her Hair, was written by Gabor Presser while performing with the legendary Hungarian band Omega. In Eastern Europe, it wasn't just another old song. It was considered a cultural treasure. Generations had grown up listening to it. So when Presser discovered that part of his composition had appeared in one of Kanye's biggest albums, he wasn't flattered. He was furious. According to the lawsuit, the sample had never been properly licensed. No approval. No agreement. No compensation. Presser argued that a substantial portion of New Slaves relied on his original composition, making authorization essential before release. The lawsuit sought millions in damages. For many observers, the surprising part wasn't that Kanye sampled another record. Sampling had been part of hip-hop for decades. The surprise was that someone operating with major label resources and an experienced legal team could allegedly release such an important track without fully resolving the rights beforehand. Whether it happened because of miscommunication, overconfidence, or simple oversight remains debated. But the financial lesson became painfully clear. Number 10. Vanilla Ice and one extra note. There are bass lines everyone recognizes instantly. This is one of them. The moment Ice Ice Baby begins, millions of people know exactly what's coming next. Released in 1990, the song became a worldwide sensation. It dominated MTV, ruled radio, and made Vanilla Ice the first rapper to reach #1 on the Billboard Hot 100.
On stage, I just play it. Playing me right or you get played out.
Almost overnight, he became one of the biggest stars on the planet. But there was one problem. Everyone else recognized that bass line too. Long before Ice Ice Baby climbed the charts, Queen and David Bowie had released one of rock music's greatest collaborations, Under Pressure. Its unforgettable bass line had already become legendary. Listeners immediately noticed the similarity.
My rhymes are so for art, it makes your heart dance. Melodic tones move your...
Critics did too. Soon, reporters began asking difficult questions. Rather than admitting the connection, Vanilla Ice initially argued that the two bass lines weren't actually identical. In one now famous interview, he tried demonstrating the difference by rhythmically tapping both versions. According to him, adding a tiny variation, a single extra note, made the songs fundamentally different. The explanation quickly became one of the most mocked moments in pop culture history. Neither Queen's representatives nor David Bowie's team accepted that argument. Legal action followed. Eventually, the dispute ended with a settlement. Queen and Bowie received songwriting credit and publishing rights connected to the composition, ensuring they would continue earning royalties from one of rap's biggest crossover hits.
Love 'em, setting up suckers like pins on a bowling ball. And
Financially, the song remained a massive success. But reputationally, the damage was harder to repair. For many music fans, the controversy overshadowed Vanilla Ice's achievement. Instead of celebrating hip-hop's growing presence in mainstream culture, much of the public focused on whether one of its biggest songs had borrowed too heavily from another classic. Number 9. Puff Daddy's tribute that came with a lifetime price tag.
That has lost someone that they truly love.
Sometimes the biggest mistakes aren't made out of greed. Sometimes they're made in the middle of grief. In March 1997, hip-hop was still trying to process the murder of the Notorious B.I.G. The loss shook the entire industry. Friends became family. Rivals put their differences aside. And no one felt that loss more personally than Sean Combs. Determined to honor his friend, Puff Daddy created what would become one of the most emotional songs in hip-hop history, I'll Be Missing You. With Faith Evans delivering the unforgettable chorus and 112 providing harmonies, the song instantly connected with listeners around the world. It wasn't just another rap single. It became an anthem for loss. Radio stations played it nonstop. Fans bought millions of copies. The song spent 11 consecutive weeks at #1 and eventually earned Grammy Awards while becoming one of the best-selling rap singles ever released. But underneath the heartfelt tribute was another song everyone already knew. The entire musical foundation came from Every Breath You Take by The Police. Its instantly recognizable guitar progression remained almost impossible to miss. There was only one problem. Permission hadn't been secured before the record hit the market. Once the song exploded commercially, legal action became unavoidable. The dispute eventually led to an agreement unlike almost any other in hip-hop history. Rather than receiving a one-time payment, Sting obtained the publishing rights connected to the composition. That means every time the song is streamed, every time it's played on the radio, every television placement, every licensing deal, publishing revenue continues flowing to Sting. Number 8. When success became more expensive than failure. By the early 1990s, hip-hop had become a commercial force unlike anything the industry had seen before. Major labels were signing rappers at record speed. MTV embraced the culture. Corporate sponsors arrived. Suddenly, rap wasn't just influencing music, it was influencing fashion, advertising, and popular culture itself. But behind the scenes, entertainment lawyers were becoming just as important as producers. Every hit record raised a new question. Who actually owns the music? The success of blockbuster lawsuits involving artists like Vanilla Ice and Puff Daddy forced record companies to rethink everything. Before releasing an album, labels began hiring teams dedicated solely to identifying borrowed melodies, hidden samples, and copyrighted recordings. Producers who once built beats from dozens of vinyl records suddenly had to think like accountants. Every sample represented another negotiation, another contract, another royalty split. Some musicians embraced the change. Others believed creativity was being buried beneath paperwork. Entire production styles began disappearing because clearing dozens of different samples became financially impossible. What once cost a few $100s could suddenly cost tens of thousands. And sometimes permission wasn't available at any price. Original artists simply said no. That shift permanently changed hip-hop production. Many producers started replaying melodies instead of sampling master recordings. Others turned toward synthesizers and original instrumentation. The sound of rap slowly evolved, not because artists wanted it to, but because copyright law demanded it. Behind every classic beat created today sits an invisible legal process that most listeners never think about. Wouldn't stay free. There are songs that define an era. Then there are songs that become larger than music itself. You Can't Touch This belongs in that second category. The moment that opening riff begins, almost everyone knows what's coming next. The oversized parachute pants. The unforgettable dance moves, the infectious confidence.
You can't touch it. I told you, homeboy.
By 1990, MC Hammer had become one of the biggest entertainers on earth. The album sold more than 10 million copies. The single won Grammy Awards. Television appearances seemed endless. For many families, Hammer, something else stood out immediately. That groove sounded very familiar. Number 5, De La Soul and the lawsuit that ended hip-hop's Wild West. By the late 1980s, hip-hop producers were treating turntables like instruments. They dug through crates of old records, lifted tiny pieces of forgotten songs, and stitched them together into something completely new. Few groups embraced that creative freedom better than De La Soul. Their groundbreaking debut album, 3 Feet High and Rising, sounded unlike anything listeners had ever heard.
Oh, it's true.
Jazz, soul, rock, children's records, TV themes, and comedy sketches all blended into a colorful musical collage. Critics praised it as a masterpiece, and fans saw it as proof that sampling could become an art form rather than simple imitation. Most of the album's samples were properly licensed, but one wasn't. The problem centered on a brief portion of You Showed Me by the Turtles. It only lasted a few bars, but that didn't matter to the song's owners. They argued that De La Soul had used their recording without permission and demanded compensation. The case eventually ended in a costly settlement, but its impact reached far beyond one group. record labels suddenly realized that every uncleared sample represented a legal risk. Overnight, sample clearance became standard practice. Producers who once packed dozens of samples into a single track now had to think twice, because every borrowed sound meant another negotiation, another contract, and another royalty payment. The financial burden changed the sound of hip-hop forever. Albums built on hundreds of samples became almost impossible to make because clearing them all would cost a fortune. Ironically, De La Soul never intended to become the example that changed the industry.
Do exactly what you do, and
They were simply creating music the way many artists had done before them. But their lawsuit marked the moment when hip-hop's creative freedom collided head-on with copyright law. Number 4. N.W.A. and the 2 seconds that changed copyright forever. By the late 1980s, N.W.A. wasn't just making music, they were changing it. Their raw lyrics, unapologetic attitude, and revolutionary production made them one of the most influential groups in rap history. But one of their biggest legal battles had nothing to do with controversial lyrics. It came down to just 2 seconds of audio. The song was 100 miles and runnin'. Hidden inside the beat was a tiny guitar sample taken from Get Off Your Ass and Jam by Funkadelic. Producer Dr. Dre pitched it down, looped it, and blended it so well that most listeners never realized another record had been used. But copyright owners noticed. Bridgeport Music, which controlled the rights to the original recording, filed a lawsuit arguing that even the smallest unauthorized sample was still copyright infringement. At first, the court ruled in N.W.A.'s favor, deciding the sample was too brief to matter. It looked like a huge victory for producers everywhere. Then everything changed. Bridgeport appealed the decision, and a higher court completely reversed the ruling. The judges delivered a message that would echo throughout the music industry: get a license or do not sample. Those 7 words reshaped hip-hop forever. From that point on, it no longer mattered whether a sample lasted 2 seconds or 2 minutes. If it came from someone else's recording, producers were expected to clear it before releasing the song. Labels tightened their policies, lawyers became part of the creative process, and sample-heavy productions suddenly became much more expensive. Many producers stopped taking risks altogether. Others turned to replaying melodies with live musicians instead of using the original recordings. The carefree sampling culture that helped define hip-hop's golden age slowly disappeared, replaced by contracts, negotiations, and licensing fees. Number 3. Biz Markie and the lawsuit that changed hip-hop forever. Before sampling lawsuits became common, producers treated old records like treasure chests. They searched for forgotten melodies, chopped them into tiny pieces, and transformed them into something entirely new. It was creative, experimental, and for a while, nobody knew exactly where the legal line was. Then came Biz Markie. In 1991, the lovable rapper released his album I Need a Haircut, featuring a song called Alone Again. The track borrowed a substantial portion of Alone Again Naturally by Gilbert O'Sullivan. Unlike many artists at the time, Biz's team actually tried to do the right thing. They contacted O'Sullivan's representatives and asked for permission to use the sample. The answer came back quickly. No, O'Sullivan didn't want his music used in a rap record. Most people would assume that was the end of the conversation. It wasn't. Despite being denied permission, the song was released anyway. That decision would change hip-hop forever. Gilbert O'Sullivan immediately filed a lawsuit, but he wasn't simply looking for money. He wanted the song removed from stores altogether. When the case reached federal court, Judge Kevin Thomas Duffy delivered one of the most famous opinions in copyright history. He opened his written decision with 5 words taken directly from the Bible. "Thou shalt not steal." Those words echoed throughout the music industry. The judge ruled decisively against Biz Markie and his record label, ordering damages while preventing further distribution of the infringing recording. More importantly, he referred the matter to federal prosecutors for possible criminal investigation. No criminal charges were ultimately filed, but the message had already been sent. Sampling without permission wasn't merely risky business. Courts were prepared to... Number 2. Biggie did it the right way. After hearing so many stories about lawsuits, million-dollar settlements, and damaged careers, it's easy to assume every famous sample ended in disaster. But one of hip-hop's greatest classics proves there was another path. Just weeks after the death of the Notorious B.I.G, his estate prepared to release Hypnotize. The record was built around the irresistible groove of Rise by Herb Alpert. That bass line fit Biggie's flow perfectly. It sounded effortless, natural, as though both songs had always belonged together. But unlike many artists we've discussed today, Biggie's team followed the proper process before the record reached the public. They asked for permission. According to Herb Alpert's business representatives, they received a cassette containing the unfinished song. After listening, they recognized something special. Rather than rejecting the request, they approved it. That single decision prevented what could have become one of the largest copyright lawsuits in hip-hop history. Instead of years inside a courtroom, both parties benefited. Biggie gained one of the defining singles of his career. Herb Alpert introduced his music to an entirely new generation. Both artists earned royalties. Both legacies remained intact. It's an important reminder that sampling itself has never been the problem. Hip-hop has always celebrated musical history. The difference is respect. Respect for ownership. Respect for creativity. Respect for the artists whose work helped inspire something new. When handled correctly, sampling becomes collaboration across generations rather than conflict between them. That's why Hypnotize remains one of the greatest examples of how the process is supposed to work. Unfortunately, not every artist learned that lesson. Which brings us to the story that sits at the very top of this countdown. Number 1. Diddy Sting, and the most expensive sample in hip-hop history.
I dedicate this song to you.
We've already discussed I'll Be Missing You. But no other case belongs at number 1, because no other settlement continues paying the original artist every single day. The tribute to Biggie became one of the biggest songs ever released. It topped charts across the globe, won Grammy Awards, sold millions of copies, introduced hip-hop to audiences who rarely listened to rap.
Hard to conceal. Can't imagine all the pain I feel. Give anything to hear happy.
Yet, beneath its emotional lyrics lived the unmistakable melody of Every Breath You Take by The Police. Since the sample wasn't cleared before release, the legal negotiations that followed permanently changed ownership of the song's publishing.
Wave your hands in the air from side to side. Come on, y'all. Every single day.
As a result, Sting continues receiving publishing income generated by the composition. Every stream, every radio spin, every licensed appearance, every movie soundtrack, every licensed performance. The royalties continue.
We miss you so much. You know the words, sing along. Come on.
That's what makes this case different from every other story on today's list. Most settlements eventually become history. This one keeps writing new chapters every time someone presses play.
Us in the 6, shop for new clothes and cakes. You and me taking.
It's the ultimate reminder that success alone doesn't guarantee ownership. You can create a global hit, win awards, sell millions, and still spend decades sharing the profits because one important conversation happened too late.
After death. Sometimes
For aspiring artists, producers, and songwriters, that's perhaps the biggest lesson of all. Sampling has never been the enemy. Some of hip-hop's greatest records were built from pieces of older music. The problem begins when creativity moves faster than permission, because inspiration can build classics. But respect keeps those classics in your hands.